these guys that are masculine presenting, usually from the outside, you don't know, could he be straight? Could he be gay? I don't know. But you know what? I'm going to give him a little bit of money because he may show me something that I want to see. I may be able to see him take off his drawers, or I'm going to see what's behind that print. Yeah, I'm going to do this twerk dance because men will pay for this. And I don't really care. I'm not about to do anything with these men sexually, but I'm going to take that money because that green is all I need because I'm going to use that in order to go buy this. I'm going to get my mom my house. I'm going to get my car. I'm going to get my Tesla. I'm going to get my Porsche. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'm okay with selling myself in this way because in the end, this means that I don't have to really work hard for this money. This is passive income for me.
What's up, everybody? You've tuned in to Just Draws, the podcast that explores hot topics and various experiences among same-gender loving Black men. In each episode, we offer raw, vulnerable, and stripped-down perspectives to give voice to our frequently overlooked population. Here, we don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep, peeling back the layers of our experiences as well as heteronormative stereotypes. Let's get into this week's episode.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Just Draws, the podcast where we keep it vulnerable,
raw, stripped down,
and authentically just us. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Darius, aka D to the M to the C.
So grab a drink.
Or keep your hands on that wheel.
Readjust your support. And
let's get into
it. All right. So tonight we're coming from the Imperial Lodge of Elks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is?
Yes, I've heard of that. Yes.
All right.
Now, I'm not going to go too much into it. Yes, I have heard of it. And that's about as far as I think I should go with that, is just hearing about it.
All right, cool. We're going to let the listeners discover that one on their own in that case then. That'll be your homework, is to know where we're coming from.
Where we are right now, exactly.
Where that is and how it will relate to this evening.
Gotcha. Yep. All right. So for this episode, we're going to do like a continuation of sorts. All right. So earlier this season, we did an episode about performative masculinity. Now, if you haven't checked that out, go back and do that. And actually, it was one of our most highly viewed episodes to date. During that episode, Jeff made a comment that really lends itself or leads into our topic tonight. So check out this clip.
But yeah, so what are you trying to hide or deflect because you're trying to bring attention to these people. So that's what that can look like. So let that person be their authentic selves. Let them be who they are on the inside, because there's performative queerness as well as performative masculinity. Now, that's not today's topic, but we have to acknowledge that if we've got this performative action on one side, there has to be another side opposite of that where it's equally so. We've got the yin and the yang. So make sure that regardless if you are masculine presenting or feminine presenting, make sure that you are your true you, your authentic self.
Gotcha. Yep. I agree wholeheartedly.
So when I listened back to the episode, I thought, this would be good if we expanded on the concept of performativity and created like a season 3 performative series of shows, each with a different topic. So this episode is going to function as part 2 in the series, where we get a chance to explore performative queerness. So quick definition or a little bit of background, little foundational information about this concept. Performative queerness is a concept developed in queer theory, and it refers to the idea that queer identity is not a fixed essence, but it is instead created and maintained through repeated acts and behaviors. So it suggests really that we do queerness just like we do gender or we do race, rather than just simply being what it is. And so this performance can involve challenging or subverting gender or sexual norms, and even reinforcing them to highlight just how they are constructed. So here's 4 examples of how we, quote, do queerness. Number one, again, as we talked about doing versus being, the core idea is that queer identity is not a static state, but it's actively constructed and is performed through actions and interactions. So again, it's something that you do. Queerness is something that you do. It's not necessarily a state of being, like a static state of being. Number two, challenging norms. Performative queerness can involve deliberately acting in ways that contradict or challenge dominant gender or sexual norms. So this may manifest itself in the ways of how you dress, the way you speak, certain behaviors, or other forms of expression that really kind of question or challenge the status quo. So sometimes you'll hear the term like gender fuck or androgyny in terms of like fashion and style. And then sometimes you see people how they infuse or they mesh gay lingo into their everyday speech. So that is a performative act, but we're challenging those norms. Number three, subverting norms. So rather than simply just rejecting those norms altogether, performative queerness can also involve manipulating established norms, highlighting that constructed nature that I talked about earlier. So it's where people kind of intentionally go against what's traditional to prove a point, or they intentionally go against that to go against the status quo, and they're just kind of being alternative. They want to be alternative, and that's their goal, is to be alternative. And then finally, there are a few others, but I'm just going to give you four. But finally, you have intersectionality. And so performative queerness can intersect with other forms of performance, such as gender or race. And then through those intersections, it can create complex and nuanced expressions of identity. In season 1, I think our second episode, we did something about the housewifing of America.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about borrowing terms and claiming them as like, oh, this is just me. This is just how I speak. This is just what I do. This is a part of my identity. When prior to people hearing those terms and engaging with those terms, etc., and even those actions, that wasn't a part of their identity. It was something that they performed and they began to do there. So we're going to shout out Judith Butler again. We talked about her in the performative masculinity episode, and that queer performativity really is rooted in her work. And her work really talks about how gender is something that it isn't something that someone is, but it's something that one does through repeated acts. So when we put that in terms of queer theory, it's really about delinking the constructs of gender, sex, and sexuality, really by showing that those elements don't have some sort of linear relationship to each other based on your biology. Like, just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you have to function in this way, or that it's a part of your identity, or it's a part of your core that you behave this way, you act this way, you speak this way. So for the purpose of the discussion today, we wanted to address what in her work in gender performativity really means for queerness today. So right before we get into the conversation, I definitely want to add this caveat to this. This conversation is really going to come from our lived experiences and our truths, and how we've navigated queerness in different spaces. So we're not here to judge anybody or police how anyone shows up. So if anything that we say kind of hits a certain way, take what resonates and leave the rest. The old saying is, chew the meat and spit out the bones. Or if you want to, definitely come into the comments and, challenge some of the things that we say, and let's continue the conversation there. So this is all love. This is all reflection, and it's all rooted in growth and introspection. Okay.
All right.
So let's again get into it now that we've laid all that foundation. You were the one that brought up the idea of queer performativity or performative queerness in the last episode. So what do you really think that it is, and in what context, I guess, do you think you were mentioning that?
So back on that episode, I kind of looked at it like a yin and yang type of deal. So, just like you have good, you have bad, you have positives, you have negatives. And so for there to be this, for lack of a better analogy, if we want to say that we have a masculine presenting person and we have a feminine presenting person within the gay diaspora, if you will,
Right.
there would have to be also the people that are trying to become more attractive by becoming masculine. And so everyone doesn't want to be masculine, or that's not the identity that other folks have. So there would have to be some type of, reflection of that. So that's where the idea kind of came from, or what I was thinking at the time when I said that. So I was thinking more so as far as presentation wise, because what we see on the outside is what we have on our pictures or what we have in videos. So a lot of times when there's a gay pride parade on TV, you'll see a big, especially if they use footage from like a San Francisco or New York, you'll see a wide variety of people wearing tutus made out of tulle. You've got drag performers wearing makeup, wigs, all of that. And for some people, that may not even really be what they want to do, but they feel like, oh, I need to do this. I need to look like this. I need to present this way because that's how it'll look. That's how I'll know that I belong with this group. So that's where
I agree with
my thinking was coming from.
I agree with a lot of that. I think it meshes the lines between expression, identity, and survival. The expression is, okay, I'm in this space, and so when in Rome, do as the Romans kind of thing. Identity is, okay, you know what, I feel good doing this. It's something that I feel like maybe I want to include in my everyday presentation of how I am. And then survival also is that thing of, I don't want to be outcasted, or I don't want to be looked at as you're not doing enough, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But I think that I can see all of those things happen. Do you think that performativity is different than just being queer?
Yeah. I mean, because if someone wants to wear a tutu and they feel like that's who they really are, they should definitely wear that. But if you're going on along with it just to be in the in crowd because you feel like, oh, this will make me part of this group of guys.
This will make me stand out.
This is what will get me popular. This will make me stand out. But you don't really feel like that's you, then maybe you are doing the performance. And you can still be queer and those things can still live in the same box. But I just think that there's a difference between doing it because you feel that that's you on the inside versus doing it to feel like you want to belong to this group because you're using it as like an aspiration to be popular or an aspiration to be like, oh, those are the cool kids over here. That's what they're doing. And I'm going to do that too.
I'm trying to figure out too, when I was trying to come up with some of the talking points for this, I was trying to figure out what the difference between like expression and performance would be and how, I'm really black and white. You've known me for a long time. It's usually this or that. I usually don't play in the gray kind of area. So I was trying to figure out like, what would if I thought about it, okay, if I'm looking at somebody and I'm going, okay, they're expressing themselves versus they're performing. I'm just trying to figure out where that line is. And I'm not really sure that I have a clear vision of what that line is. Do you think you have one?
I mean, I don't think that it's something that I would be able to tell just from looking at someone from the outside.
Like a cursory look.
Right. Because I don't know what that person feels on the inside. So, I can think that, oh, there's a person that I know by acquaintance. And every time I see them, they're always making sure that they are as stereotypically gay as you could possibly be. But then I'm like, I don't see these people in the context of being out and about on the town to say like, oh yeah, he's just doing that because he wants to look gay. Because I feel like in our demographic, in our age group, that's not really a thing. But as far as like a younger impressionable gay, like I'm talking about somebody that's, preteen, early 20s, before they turn 26 and their brain is fully developed, that type of age range, and that's what I was thinking, coming into this. I don't know, you may have seen this on, there was this clip of this guy who he was, I think it was on Instagram, and it could have made its way over to TikTok and Twitter too. And he like showed pictures of his younger self and, he looked more feminine, I guess. And then you can see where I felt like I wasn't really like this. And so now I've changed into this more masculine presenting guy. And I saw
Okay.
another one where there was another dude and he did the exact opposite where, he was more femme and then he became more masculine. And so it was like, it reversed that right there. But you know what I mean?
Right.
Like we went from one extreme into the other over the course of time as they got to know themselves better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think once people kind of make that decision for their own selves, or they kind of feel like, or they learn what works for them and what they truly are, then I think it naturally kind of comes out. But I don't think that I can tell that there's like, this is the point here. This is the line of demarcation, as you would say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where it goes from A to B, on and off, black or white.
As you were talking, a few things kind of popped up in my mind when you were talking about I don't know what you feel inside. I was like, oh, Christina Aguilera's Reflection just started playing in my mind. Yeah, so I was like, oh, when will my reflection show who I am inside? But the other thing that you talked about that kind of brought that up for me was I haven't seen that clip that you're talking about, or I haven't seen that video, but I'm thinking to myself about growing up, and I want to talk about how we might have performed or how we were in this performative state growing up. But I thought about how when I was younger, how I kind of performed. I could look back at myself, and I've even said this about myself, that if I were who I am now, I would not have been friends with myself then. And now kind of thinking about this, it's because there are times now where I do feel like I have to perform. And not that it's so far from who I am, but that it is, again, it's going back to that survival kind of thing. And I've been in that survival sort of space for so long that now this becomes very natural to me. It's like, okay, well, this is really maybe who I am, or maybe at the time I was performing then, I don't know. So just trying to figure that out. It's a very interesting dance that I think I'm going to have to kind of deal with and have in therapy and with myself a little bit. But let's move on to talking about performativity and culture and media. So how do you think that mainstream and social media have changed the way that queerness is performed?
Okay, so social media, because now there's the incentive to be popular,
Mm-hmm.
there's a financial incentive to that. I think there may be a lot more performance going on for people to kind of like, let me capitalize on this queerness in a way where I can use my popularity to get money or get more
Or clout.
clicks or, clout, or let me use that as a way to, I'm going to charge for, this right here, this little section of my social media platform. And make no mistake about it. Like, we are on social media, we are content creators. So of course, yes, we would like to be monetized as well.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as
Hint,
like
hint to everybody out there.
yeah. So, because everyone's trying to get a piece of the pie so that everybody can eat, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that social media has kind of made it where if I do all of this extra stuff and I'm putting on it real thick, maybe that can get me what I want. Maybe I can get that popularity. Maybe I can get those views and clicks and followers and, take this from this platform to that platform. Now, the thing with that, though, to me, is that you run the risk of being inauthentic. And the problem with that is like once folks find out that you're not real and you're not really about it, you run the risk of losing all of that or losing a good chunk of it because, oh, well, he's only doing that because of this and she's only doing that because of that. But then it also depends on which lane of the queerness that you're going to be on. Because I'm thinking now, as I'm saying this, for example, gay baiters.
Yeah.
We have the
that
guys
concept popped in my mind too.
Yeah, so we have these guys that are masculine presenting usually, and they are from the outside. You don't know, could he be straight? Could he be gay? I don't know, but you know what? I'm gonna give him a little bit of money because he may show me something that I want to see. I may be able to see him take off his drawers,
And
or I'm
shake
gonna
a
see
little
what's
something.
behind that print. yeah, I'm going to do this twerk dance because men will pay for this. And I don't really care. I'm not about to do anything with these men sexually, but I'm going to take that money because that green is all I need because I'm going to use that in order to go buy this. I'm going to get my mom a house. I'm going to get my car. I'm going to get my Tesla. I'm going to get my Porsche. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'm okay with selling myself in this way because in the end, this means that I don't have to really work hard for this money. This is passive income for me. I'm just going to do this little content. I filmed it all in like 1 month or 1 week, and I can just drag it out across the course of a month. And then I just do it again next month. So, yeah, I mean, it could feel like social media kind of makes it where, again, people are chasing the dollar. And so they're doing whatever they can to use that popularity to get more dollars.
Yeah. And I agree with all that. Like I said, the gay baiter thing like popped in my mind as you were talking too about how people are doing things and they're performing in order for some sort of gain, whether that gain is monetary or social gain, or even maybe it may have something to do with self-esteem too, because I think about thirst traps. I think about people who, you know, my threads and you know, I was one of the first people to really start using threads, and everybody was coming on threads going, okay, what are we using this for? What is this for? What is this for? And I promise, like when I go to threads now, and it could just be the, you know, we throw this out there, the word, the algorithm. It could just be the algorithm and the people that I follow, but there are more fit pages on my threads than anything. I can open up threads right now and maybe the first thing I'll see is somebody, some gym picture or somebody with their shirt off and they're talking about gains and they're talking about, you know, oh, I'm in the lab again, or this is my therapy and, you know, all of that stuff. And it's just like, okay, now this is cool. Like if you want to post this and you're not sharing it, like you're doing private sort of posts to yourself just to say, okay, I want to take a look at myself. But I mean, you all are posting things and I do it too. You know, I mean, I post stuff sometimes that I'm like, okay, oh, I look good today, you know, or, you know, I just worked out and got this pump, you know, okay, this looks good. Let me post this and get some clicks and views
Post
here.
That thirst trap.
Post that thirst trap. Now, my thirst traps are definitely not as risque, you know, as a lot of other people. So, you know, I'm fully clothed in my thirst traps, but you know, I try to do the light skin face, you know, when I post and the duck lips and all of that stuff, you know. But yeah, it's interesting to think about how all of those things, how that has become indoctrinated into the culture and how specifically in queer spaces that is your calling card, or that seems to be the calling card, like the thirst traps or the gay baiting, you know, if you're straight, even like terms where men are called sassy, you know, because they talk back. Zesty, yeah, that's the other one. Yeah, you know, they talk back, or they don't let people kind of talk to them any other way. And it's like, okay, that I don't think is performative. I think that when you don't do that, and that's something that's a part of you, that it's like, you're not going to talk to me any kind of way. I think when you don't say something about it, I think it's where you're starting to be a little bit more performative there. But it's really interesting. Again, it's this dance of figuring out what is identity, what is expression, and then what is actual performance. You know, do you curate your queerness online at all?
I don't think I curate my. Are you talking about as far as what I put out on social media, or are you talking about what I view on social media?
No, what you post specifically.
Specifically, I don't think that I curated, but I put out what I want to share, just like anyone else. You know, I don't think like, oh, I'm going to put out this post because this is going to make me identify as being gay. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or, you know, there's not like, oh, I mean, I posted things online. I posted things to my close friends. I posted things to, you know, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, like all of it. And I've never been like, oh, I'm going to post this because this is going to get the boys to look at me type of deal. Like, I don't have a problem, you know, showing off my chest or whatever. Not even showing it off. I'll take a shirtless photo and post it online, but it's not be like, oh, let me make sure I got this angle, this, that, and the other. Because if you follow my social media, even though I haven't really posted a lot lately, if you scroll through my Instagram right now, you'll see like a section of like black and white photos. And so the challenge with that was, just post something, don't put any type of context on it. But I would kind of think about, oh, I haven't posted a picture like this. Oh, I haven't posted a picture like that. And like I did that for like a whole month, or like maybe 2 years in a row. That would be like the most curated or most, I intentionally posted these things like this because it was part of something that I wanted to do myself. But it wasn't like, let me do this and let me do this and let me make sure the ankle is like this. And then it's coming from like, I didn't really do that like that.
Did you get a lot of attention from that?
The only reason why I got attention from that is because usually before I would do it, when there would be like a long stint where I didn't post anything on Instagram, and then all of a sudden it was like bing, 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 bing. You have all of these photos that kind of came through, and people are like, "Oh, he's posting stuff," and that would be it. So I wouldn't say that I got a lot of attention. It wasn't like, "Oh, I did this and I got 10,000 followers after the month or whatever," because it wasn't like I was using, hashtags and things like that. And back then, the algorithm really wasn't as advanced as it is now, where, that would put that type of content out. If I were to do something like that again, probably so. Depends on what, if people that were into or that are into like my aesthetic and how I look in this, that, or the other, they probably would be like, oh, well, let me start following this guy. Let me see what he's going to start doing. But yeah, that's the most I could say that I've intentionally presented myself in any kind of way.
So you thought about your audience when you were posting those things?
I didn't think about my audience. I posted
you didn't? Okay.
What I wanted for myself. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm doing this for y'all. This is, oh, I'm taking this black and white photo. Today I'll have my shirt off. It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, I think like, oh, I need to post something today. Let me do this. So yeah, I would be like, if I didn't think about it until the end of the day, and I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to have to post this photo in bed. Be that what it may, whatever happens, this is what happens. And this is where the chip's going to fall. Like one day I did it and I posted it, one photo like at 11:58, and then I posted another one at 12:01. So I got it bang, bang, like right out the door that day. And then I didn't do anything else for like that whole like 36 hours or 24 hours later or whatever for it to roll into the next day before I posted something else, because I had reached the requirement for myself, very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think about my audience when I post, because I know that I don't have a specific account that I just have friends on, and then I have a specific account that I might have family on. So a lot of my accounts really blur those lines. I have friends, family, I have former students, frat brothers, I have everybody on certain accounts. And so sometimes I have to think about those things. Like even when we've done the Just Draws posts that come from our account and like we are added as collaborators, there are times where I'm like, no, I'm not going to collaborate on this one because I got some people who are following me and I wouldn't want them to kind of think about this. It goes back to my episode that I'm still kind of working through, my solo episode about keeping people in boxes and compartmentalized and like making sure that the quote image is safe, even though I don't feel like I necessarily have to do that a lot, but there are times where I'm still in that. I'm still growing, in that. And I have done that too. I have done, posted some things for just likes or views or clicks, all of that stuff, just to see what happens. Again, my stuff is not risque like that, but there are times where, I might have a sleeveless shirt on, or I might have on a tank top, or I might be laying in bed ever so slightly, with the bedroom eyes, just to kind of throw that out there. But it's usually because, okay, I want to post something. Like you said, I haven't posted in a while, but there are moments where I'm just like, I haven't posted anything in a while, and I want to see if my people are still paying attention to me a little bit. That's there. I can admit that. My name is Darius, and I can admit that I post queers. Excuse me, for queers. Yeah, for queers, for likes, validation, and visibility sometimes. So do
So
you?
are you
Oh, go ahead. I'm
are
sorry.
you trying to get like, or when you say that, when you post to your audience, is that to increase the size of your audience, or just the people that you know already follow you?
Both. I think it's both.
Okay.
I think that there are times where I'm like, okay, I'd like to, see who else, might actually follow me in this space. And even since we've been doing the podcast, like there have been people who see our shorts and will start following me. And I'm like, I don't know who this is, but okay, cool. Maybe they listen to the podcast. And so I just kind of stay in that lane and go, maybe that's what it is. But a lot of times those people just follow and they don't necessarily engage after that. They just, so my numbers might be kind of high, but I'm not engaging with all these people. You're not friends with all these people. It's just, they're just
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah. And like what you were saying, like, especially like on Facebook,
mhm.
I have family and friends on there, and there are things that I would post to Instagram that I wouldn't necessarily post to Facebook. I don't have that set up where it automatically posts it, because not everything is for everybody. And even though
Yeah,
I don't have
right.
anything on there that's like, crazy,
Mm-hmm.
when I do use close friends, it may be a little bit more, risque, if you want to use that term,
Mm-hmm.
than whatever, because it's not the same eyes that are on the close friends or even Instagram itself than what's on Facebook. So,
Mm-hmm. That's the word for this podcast, risque. Every time you hear the word risque, take a shot. Do you ever feel exhausted by the expectation to be a certain way?
no, because you're going to get what you get with me. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
the type of person that, as far as it goes on like this podcast, when we are on doing this,
Mm-hmm.
like right now, like for
Mm-hmm.
me, everything is about this show.
Okay.
But, outside of if someone sees me on the street, or if I go somewhere, or I'm here in Atlanta, there's been a few people and they're like, "Oh, you got a podcast." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And it doesn't really kind of hit me,
Mm-hmm.
right then, that someone has recognized me from the podcast, because I'm like, well, we don't have a lot of followers, but okay.
Right.
And so it's not like
But
something that I
we don't
would
have a lot of
expect. Like,
followers. I think we have a lot of viewers, but not a lot of followers,
we
which
may
is
have a lot
interesting.
of viewers, yes, but I'm not, my mind does not think that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yes, I do this show. And when I go out to the bar, or, the gym or something, that someone's going to just walk up to me and start talking about this podcast, because my mind is not on that.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't. What you see is what you get. Now, because we're on the show and we're recording and we're just having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
between two friends,
Right.
then, yeah, you'll probably get the me that you get, the me that Darius gets, the me that, my other friends, John, would get, that's been on the show, Tariko would get. Now, you get that. That audience would get this version of me. But just regular Joe off the street that I don't really know, they're going to get like introverted Jeff. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be, and I talk about this a lot of time, they're going to get the Michigan J. Frog version of Jeff, where it's "Hello, my baby. Hello,
Yeah,
my
hello, my
darling. Hello, my
darling.
ragtime gal," right
Yeah.
now.
And
But,
all of
out in the
this.
street, yeah, it's probably going to be like, "I don't really know you like that, but okay, I'll be nice." And until we get to the point where I feel comfortable with you, then you'll start to get this version of Jeff a little bit more. But as far as just doing this, again, we're just having a conversation. So of course I'm on this mode, right now. So it's not, I'm not doing anything extra right now for trying to make a clip later. My mind is not thinking about that. It's just, we're recording this show. Once it gets into the editing bay, whatever comes up, comes up.
Comes up and comes out. Yeah. I agree there too. I'm definitely a lot more introverted by nature. I know how to function in extroverted spaces, but that's really dope that people are recognizing you when you go out. Now, they don't recognize me as much, but again, I don't go out as much potentially as you do. And so maybe if I went out a little bit more, there would be people who might recognize me, but then also you're in Atlanta too. So, the Mecca. And so you would probably be recognized a lot more. I remember when I was there for New Year's and we went to that New Year's party and a guy at the party recognized you. I remember seeing you from across the room, and you actually like pointed in my direction. And so then you brought the other guy over there, and he was like, oh yeah, he's like, I never would have put it together that it was you, there. So, and he was like, well, and he told me that he didn't realize I was as tall as I was, stuff like that. And so that felt cool to get a sense or to feel kind of what you get a chance to see a lot more in Atlanta. So, but I don't feel that expectation necessarily to be loud, fun, or fierce either. But there are times where I will internalize it when somebody says, oh, well, you're not this or you're not that. And when it becomes restrictive is when I kind of internalize it a little bit more. So there are people, I don't drink and I don't smoke. So there are people who won't invite me. And I've said this on the podcast a few times before, where people won't invite me to certain things because I don't drink. I had a friend or have a friend / frat brother who I used to hang out with, and he would go to brunch like every Sunday. So he said to me, like he would say, I said, how was Sunday? How was your Sunday? And he would go, yeah, it was good. I went to brunch. And I was like, oh, I would have loved to have gone to brunch. I wasn't doing anything. I was just kind of chilling out. And so after saying that a few times, like, hey, I would love to be invited to brunch, if whatever, and you're going to brunch with people that I know, as well. So he was just like, I said, well, hey, I don't, you don't ever really invite me to brunch, what's up with that? And he was like, well, you don't drink. And I'm just like, okay, but I eat and I talk. I do all of these other things, but like, I don't get it. And so sometimes I haven't gone to the space of, oh, well, maybe I should do this in order to try to fit in. I haven't gotten there yet. Maybe when I was younger, I was like that, but I'm just like, okay, well, you know what? Fuck it. If you don't want to invite me to whatever, then that's cool. 'Cause I don't want to perform, Yeah,
you don't want to perform the act of drinking the alcohol.
Okay, exactly.
But as a person that has gone to brunch, and several times,
yes, because you're in Atlanta.
Brunch is not necessarily about. Yeah, it's not about the bottomless mimosas and
you can't tell the gays
special.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's really not about that, and it's weird to me that somebody would say that, but you're around those hoity-toity Baltimore / DC gays, and they're all
the
above it
pretentious
all.
ones, of course. Yes, absolutely.
But it's really not about the drinking. I think because that's so small as far as I'm concerned. Like I'm not going to. I think if you're going to brunch, you get your little bottomless mimosas. You may get your special little brunch cocktail.
Your Bellini, like, whatever.
It's Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. Like, yeah, Sunday fun day, this, that, and the other. You don't need to get toe up before 3:00. You got all day to drink, and you should have got a lot of that out of your system Saturday and Friday.
It's the weekend. We outside, and shit. Brunch doesn't start till like 2:00, 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, this is not fucking brunch. This is late lunch at best.
Yeah,
just because it's
Sunday.
Lunch. Yeah, just because it's Sunday doesn't mean it's brunch. I've seen people actually talk about we going to brunch at 4:00. No, you're not. You're going to dinner at 4:00.
Yeah, because
sir and ma'am.
I mean, it's a couple of places down here that the brunch menu is done at like 3:00, or the restaurant closes at 3:00. Like the last seating is at 2:30.
As it should be, and then I feel like that's performative. Especially among the gays. Like, okay, we got a brunch all day. Kind of thing. And we got to drink and we got to do this. And then we're going to go to this thing. We're going to brunch and then we're going to go here. And then we're going to go here. And then we're going to go here. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. That might be fun.
Sunday fun day.
Yeah, that might be fun. But it's like, damn, like, is that it? Like, is that the extent of what Sunday fun day is? It's just brunch and then a party here and another party here and then another party here where you're drinking and or smoking at every one of these events. I don't know.
I mean, it can be, or you're going to someone's kickback. But I mean, I'll say that Sundays like that, if that's your every Sunday, then you got something else going on.
Yeah.
And maybe, it could be just our generation. I'm not going to say that I would not do a Sunday fun day like that once every month or every 6 or 8 weeks. But to do that every Sunday is a
Right.
lot.
It's a
And I
lot.
know
You're
there's
right.
people that do that a lot all the time because there's people that go out to the club every
Every
weekend. They at the
weekend.
club every weekend. They have their own little section that they always stand in when they go to the club. They always go to the same clubs. They always go to the same clubs on the same night. They always order the same drinks. They always see the same people,
Same people. Yep.
except for whatever the new
same
residents
body.
are.
Yep.
The same bodies.
The fresh meat. When the fresh meat comes, then it's
Exactly.
like, oh, okay, well, let's see who out here.
Yeah. And to me, that's just not me. But I'm
Mhm.
not knocking people that do the Sunday fun day at all. Cause I feel like, again, everything in moderation. Sometimes you need to just sit your ass at home on Sunday and just wash clothes, watch TV,
Mhm.
make brunch yourself at your own house. You
That's
know?
right. Let's do that.
Exactly. Just stay at home. A couple of them. Just see how that is. You don't have to be out and about. And then parking is crazy these
Yeah.
days. You paying
Yeah,
them too
it
much to
is.
park for these expensive ass drinks and waiting around trying to tip people. It's expensive, and you spend a lot of money just on brunch like that. It's not cheap.
Yeah. Well, clearly these people have it, but whatever. So let's move, or let's shift into another kind of subtopic here. Let's talk about identity and expression. Have you ever had a situation where you felt like you had to turn up your queerness or turn down your queerness depending on who you're around?
I don't feel like
Okay.
I do that, but I will say there's areas where I'll feel more comfortable to be a certain amount of gay,
Okay.
and other places where I'm less comfortable. So, for example, I'm comfortable when I'm around the Atlanta metro area to be a little bit more expressive and touchy feely with, my partner right now. As far as like if we're out sitting at the booth, this and the other, I have no problem sitting next to him or vice versa, or him holding my hand or vice versa, or just rubbing on his back or shoulder or whatever. None of that really kind of bothers me, but I don't do that to try to fit in. It's just that my comfort level here is a lot higher than it would be, say, when we went to Houston last year. I felt like, okay, I ain't really been in Houston in years, so I don't know what y'all vibe is like. So I'm just gonna kind of dial this back a little bit because I need to do the vibe check. So the next time I go, I may feel a little bit like, well, it's still Texas. This ain't Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So I may not be able to do those or feel comfortable with how much PDA we show.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I've never felt like I needed to be more, hey, I'm gay, move out my
Mm-hmm.
way. You
Right.
know,
Holding up the bloodstained banner. Right.
exactly. Like it's
I'm
not like that.
here.
And
I'm
it's never
queer.
been like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's never been like that for me. And I've never felt like I needed to, again, like I said before, what you see is what you get here. And I'm not going to all of a sudden be more gay just because, oh, I'm around this crowd because they are gay. It'll be more, I'm comfortable doing this now because I'm around a more gay friendly group of folks where okay, well, I don't feel like, oh, I need to do this or I need to, do that just to fit in. It's just not a thing for me.
Yeah. I've had that same person that I was just talking about that told me, hey, well, you don't drink, so that's why I don't really invite you to brunch. Actually said to me too, he said, I feel like you're only about 2% gay. I think I told you this too. He was like, yeah, you're only like 2% gay because like there's no mystery about you. There's no like guile. Like you're really straightforward and straight up about stuff. You're a straight shooter. Like you're pretty blunt about things and I was like, okay, well, is that what that means? Like to be gay, that like you got to have some mystery about you, or you got to be a little more, have some guile, about you. I don't know, but I feel the same way. I don't feel like I need to turn it up or turn it down depending on who I'm around. But what I have noticed is the way people receive me is based on their own performativity. like how they perform in those spaces. So I've seen people who, when it's maybe just the two of us, they're very, they're a little more reserved. They're a little more talkative in terms of expressing, what's going on with them, but they're doing it in a more introverted or reserved sort of way. And then when they get around other people, they're live, loud, and in color. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. And so then with everybody else being loud, live, and in color, and then I'm still being introverted and reserved, or let's see, live, loud, and in color, dead, quiet, and and in black and white for me, and monochromatic, right? Okay, drab. For me, it's like people look at that differently, and they're just like, "Oh, well, he's this and he's that," or I don't want to hang out with him because he's not amped up and ramped up like everybody else. But I don't feel that the need to do that. But again, I observe a lot, so I've seen people switch that on and switch that off just because of the people that they're around.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been told that you weren't enough or that you were too much?
No.
You haven't?
No, because I mean, my personality is just not presenting that. It's not giving. It's not giving that.
Okay, it's not giving.
It's not giving. Not
get that lingo in here. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not giving you too much, or not. Now, maybe not enough, but no one's ever said that to my face. But, you get what you get. Now, I've gotten, oh, well, he's too quiet. He doesn't really talk. I don't think he likes me, type of things, because people think that, you've got to constantly talk to them all the time in order for you to, like them. I can like you and still not really be all that talkative to you. It's better than me disliking you.
There was a point where you told me about, this was in your previous relationship, where you were telling me that he didn't necessarily, like, he wouldn't invite you out to stuff where his friends were at because there was a way that they felt about you, or they felt like, I don't remember what you told me about that.
Well, I mean, this person really doesn't matter anymore.
True.
But
very true. Yeah. Very true.
This is a non-motherfucking factor in my life.
Okay.
But
right. Absolutely.
I'll say this. If you are the type of person that feels like you have to constantly have someone give you, I guess, some type of compliment or acknowledgement or recognition in order to be like your friends, or not even necessarily, because I never had the intention or desire to be friends with their friends. I just wanted to be more cordial, and to kind of get to know them through how their friends see them, because I think that's very important, because sometimes friends let out things that you may not have wanted things to get let out. And they may not have been debriefed to be like, hey,
don't say that.
When he comes over here, don't mention these subjects. You know what I mean? And then, and because the way things have worked out, I kind of feel like that was the whole thing was that, okay, we're just going to kind of like put him over here because I don't really want him to know this about me. I don't want to see him. I don't want him to see me in this mode because something may slip up or slip out. And I kind of feel like that's what that was all about, more so than anything else. I don't think it was any type of like dislike, because I never said, oh, I don't like this person. I just never wasn't around them long enough to kind of get their vibe, to see how they are. And then after that, because it wasn't going to be like, oh, let me go see what XYZ is doing and let's go out to brunch and get bottomless mimosas. No, I'm not trying to hang out with your friends like that. If it happens, great and natural. But that was never my intention, was to be like, well, your friends are going to become my friends and we're all just going to be buddy
One big
together.
happy family together. Yeah.
No, that was not my intention at all.
Got you. Yeah. No, I understand that. Okay. Cool. I appreciate you revisiting that non-motherfucking factor. So let's move to second to last point here. Talk about style and our vibe and how we show our queerness, or how we perform, for lack of a better term, queerness in spaces or identity. Do you feel that your style or your presentation says something about your queerness?
What you get from me is just going to be like that regular average Joe type of guy. You
Okay.
know, like I said before, I'm t-shirts and jeans. I'm not really trendy. There were times when I would be like, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit more trendy and wear this. I'm gonna wear this. I'm
A
gonna
bit
wear
more
that.
metrosexual.
Metrosexual, whatever you want to call it. Of the moment. Fashion Nova, Sheen,
There you go. Temu, right?
style fashion. I just am not that. You're not really getting that from me right now, because that's not what I desire to kind of like
Right.
look like. When on this podcast, you see me, I'm usually going to be in a t-shirt, and that's just basically it. Because I just, this is what you would get all the time, unless you see me out. I may put on something a little bit different than what you see here on the podcast. But that's about it. Now, not to say that I'm not one of those people that went in Rome, because of course, when I've gone to different parties and things like that where there was a theme, I will go with the theme.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm
will
good
cosplay.
with that.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm good with following whatever the theme of the party is, and now I'll find something that'll work, or that I like, or how I want to present. As we're going into summer, I'll be going to a couple of different events. The pool. I'm going to this nudist thing. A couple of those things are on the docket for me. So when there, I'll get a little bit more expressive. I have no problem going out to, like, when I've gone to the circuit parties here. I'll dress to the occasion, for the occasion. I got my little harnesses. I got my little short sleeve things and shorts and all of that. That's going to be like the most that you get from me, just because I'm going to be in that environment. And so I'm going to fit in. I'm not going to be like a looky-loo at the circuit party, with a full jean and a trench coat on.
Yeah, and a trench coat.
The turtleneck.
Yeah, it's like a turtleneck and a trench coat.
If I'm going to go to the circuit party
and boots,
if I'm going to go to the deviant party, I'm going to dress as the deviant theme, because I'm just not one of those types of people that'll be like me having fun. That'll be me expressing myself and taking myself not so serious, where I can't let this little piece of time go for the next 2.5 hours, or however that I'm at this function or this event, where I can't wear this little outfit that I'm probably not going to wear but once or twice a year. That, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm fine with expressing myself in those types of environments. So yes, for the occasion, for the party, for the function, you'll get more of that from me. From day to day, you're going to get this t-shirt, jeans, shorts, athletic wear, the tracksuit or whatever. Yeah, I'll have that stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely the more fashion conscious, per se, between the two of us. I'm the one that's like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm going to put on with this, and then I have to figure this out, and then this out, and this out. And even on the podcast, like, yeah, I might have on a t-shirt, but I'm like, okay, let's see what else I can kind of add to this in order to kind of show the style a little bit. And so my style of presentation definitely is intentional, but a lot of my intentionality with my style comes from the fact that when I was younger, I didn't have the ability to be stylish, whether that was because of my size, me being a bigger young man and not finding the clothes that were popular in my size, or it was due to money. The money wasn't there. And so while I kind of got what I wanted, clothes was not something that my family was like, oh, okay, well, we're going to go out and get you this Tommy Hilfiger shirt
Mm-hmm.
that was $50 at the time, which was like, oh, that's expensive as fuck, you know, or, you know, we're going to go get you this, you know, I did have a starter jacket, you know, in the 90s, but, you know, stuff like that. But I got that for Christmas, and like I never got another starter jacket again, you know, so I wasn't getting Jordans every time they came out. So my style and my presentation in that really speaks more so to my now ability to be able to do some of those things. So I can see something, I can see a trend and go, okay, I like how that looks. Let me test this out and see, you know, how this looks on me, you know, just so I can kind of stay up with everybody else. So it definitely is a lot more intentional, but I don't know that it speaks more so to my queerness as it does, like I said, just my ability to be able to do that.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I had my Jabot and Tommy. I've had Jordans. I've had those things before. There, if you dig even further back into my IG, you'll see I had my little cardigans and things like that that I would wear. You know, so I was a lot more fashionable. But now that I've gotten older, I just don't care. Like I'm just going to, you know, and they're not saying that there ever won't be a time where I'll be like, you know what, I'm going to, you know, show y'all what I can do type of deal. But yeah, I can pick out some clothes and never like really wear them. But that was my thing. Like I'd have all of these clothes and I would never wear them, or I wear them like once or twice. And I'd be like, you know what, I don't want to spend money on this. Like I could have gone to this location. I could have bought this other thing, you know? So yeah, that's for me is like the big stopper. But now that we've got this bad for the environment, fast fashion, where you can get this little cute outfit that you're just going to wear a couple of times and it only costs like 10 cents and you're done with it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You get your little, like I said, your Shein and Fashion Nova and Temu outfits.
And I'm waiting on something to come right now.
Right. Yeah. You get your little outfit from those little Chinese brands or whatever, and nothing wrong with it. You know, like it's cute. You wear it for the moment, and then, you know, you kind of move on. You know, not say that. And I, full disclosure, I do have some Shein stuff.
Yeah, I have Shein.
I do have some Shein stuff.
Temu, Boohoo Man or Man.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, all of the good stuff. All that fast fashion stuff. Nothing wrong with it, but you know that does make it a little bit easier to be fashion conscious and more aware and stylish and trendy, because now you don't have to invest so much in it, and people care less about labels and brands than they do. And then it's the expectation. Like you're not buying Temu stuff thinking that, okay, I'm going to get this from Temu and it's going to last me until the next decade and it's going to come back in style, you know, 15 years later.
Right.
Right. It's going to be vintage Sheen that I'm wearing right now.
That's right.
Like nobody's doing.
Right. Because the shit is probably unraveling as we speak, but you know,
right.
Joggers.
That stuff is not meant to last.
Lifestyle, and joggers.
Right. That stuff is
summer,
rot.
Spring, summer, and fall. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Is there a space, and you kind of alluded to this, but is there a space where you feel like you can be your complete self, and what makes that safe for you to be able to do that?
Why don't you answer that one first?
Okay. So there are points where I feel like I can relax a little bit more in my views and how I feel about certain things, but there are points where I still feel like I have to hold back from what I really feel about stuff. And this is not always in queer spaces that I feel this, but it is more so in majority spaces, like where I work. Where I work is very white. And so there are times where I have to perform blackness, you know, in a certain way in order, or I feel there are times where I have to perform blackness in a certain way. I'm slowly getting out of that, but in order for survival, you know, in that. But in queer spaces, again, I don't always feel like I have to, that I can't be myself, but there are times where I can relax a little bit more. Like when you and I are talking, like there are things that I can say to you that I don't mean any harm. It's just my delivery sometimes that sometimes I have to go, okay, hold on. Let me think about where I am here, because somebody's going to read that a different way. And I know that what makes it safe for me is the fact that there's mutual investment in the friendship, in the relationship, or whatever the ship is, acquaintanceship, companionship, that there's mutual interest there. And that's what makes it safe for me.
Okay. Yeah. Similarly, I can say anytime I'm around my friends, that's you, that's John, that's Jamal, my inner core circle of folks. I always feel like can be myself. I don't have to hide. I don't have to filter myself, because they're getting this version of Jeff. They're getting the real version of me, where I don't care. I can say that. And anytime I'm in a space where nobody knows me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that goes for a lot of people, like, because a lot of y'all, me included, when we get out of town, we lose our minds.
Okay.
Like we become, we get a little, we may get a little alcohol, we may get a little weed in us, and we become the magnified version of who we are on the inside. But I can definitely say when I'm out of town or I'm in a place where don't nobody know me, you're probably going to get a lot of this, just because, I don't have to be like, ooh, I wonder if this is going to get back to where I'm from. I don't have to worry about that. And I think, and I would like to say that, oh, I should be like this all the time. But I guess part of me just kind of feels like there's that little voice in the back that's restricting me from like being like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I'm around my friends, or if I'm out of town or out of town with my friends, I feel like I can be more of my authentic self. Because I'm less worried about, people seeing me, or I don't care. I'm never going to see these people again. So whatever, let's do the karaoke. They can record it all they want to. Blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's none of that stuff kind of matters to me. And in a way, I can say that. Well, it shouldn't matter anyway. You should feel free to just be yourself all the time.
All the time, yes.
But a lot of us, or myself, I'll say that sometimes that's a little. It's easier to say it than it is to actually do it.
Yeah.
So, those are things that I can work on later. But it's no big deal. I'm good right now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's better than feeling like you are never able to fully express
yourself. To be yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think that's where we're getting into mental health issues, and
we need to sit down on the couch with somebody and get that worked out.
So tell me how you feel about all of that. Yeah, we definitely need to go into that.
How is your relationship with your parents?
That's right.
Was your dad in the house?
Have you ever done one of those like psychiatric sort of sessions?
I'm not like that. No.
See, I have. I've been not necessarily laying on a couch, but I have been sitting in like a psychologist's office, and they're sitting there with a notepad and a clipboard and asking me questions like, okay, talk to me about your support system. Like, how do they show up for you? And and I'm like, okay, well, this is what it is. And then it turned into where, what, mine is just like that too. And I can remember, and I'm like, okay, you want to pass me that clipboard and let me take some notes? Yeah. Do you have any difficulty navigating your queerness in spaces that are professional or maybe like family, where you don't feel like you can fully show up? Or
when I'm at work, I don't be giving a damn about being gay.
Okay.
Like it's not one of those things that's like front of mind for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked at places where it was okay to be gay. And not until the job before the job that I have now that I feel like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to start out day one. I'm gay. That's why I ain't got to worry about this, later on being a thing, because I'm controlling it. And that was fine. But I never was the type of person that went above and beyond trying to be like, well, my boyfriend this and my boyfriend that, like some people do, when they are involved with someone.
Yeah.
My boss, had their spouse, and they would always talk about what they and their spouse used to do all the time. But I never really felt like, it was that big of a deal for me. Like, you knowing that I'm gay was enough. I didn't really need to give you all the details of my life, because I wouldn't do that regardless at any time. So definitely around a professional setting, even where I work now, again, I haven't made like an official announcement, but I'm in all these little gay groups at work. But yeah, work wise, professional wise, I'm fine with being gay, but I don't go out of my way to be a queer person or be like, yeah, I'm going out to the Eagle this weekend for First Friday. Yay.
The
Wear my
Pride
harness,
Parade is coming up. I'm ready.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not doing all of that.
Right.
I'm also the type that, we've talked about this before, where around my family, again, it's kind of like that with them too, because they know I'm gay. They don't care that I'm gay. And they don't care that I'm gay.
Okay.
So if you miss that, what that means is they know that I'm gay. They don't care that I'm gay. It doesn't matter to them that I'm gay. They don't care that I'm gay. They never ask me about my gay life. They never ask me, how's your boyfriend doing?
Same.
Where are y'all going to do this? And when are are y'all going to get married? Like, I don't get those types of questions. But I say, if I was straight and I had a girlfriend, it would be like, when are you and Susie Q going to get married? Are y'all going to get some kids?
When you going to put
this,
some
that, and other.
beans in that oven?
It's becomes a whole big snowball of questions from that, because they care about that, but they don't give a damn about, me and some other dude. They don't. So to me, because they don't care, like if I felt like they were more invested in my life like that, I'd have a problem like giving them more, but because I'm giving them what they're giving me. So you're not really giving me that you're interested. So cool. You getting what I feel that you can, all you need to know is that I got a man, and that's it. When I get to the next step with this person, you'll get that. And if you're still interested in going to an event that we may have or not, great. But I'm not telling you this to give you my, wish list of items, this and other, because when I've broken up with folks before, y'all weren't there to help me get through that.
Yeah.
So don't show up just on the good times, as far as I'm concerned.
Anytime you need a payment, good times. For me, it's very similar. I don't like to, and one of the things that I told myself years and years ago when I started actually dating guys, I said to myself, I wanted to try to keep that separate from work. I didn't want people to associate me with gay. I had a problem with them saying that that's a part of who he is, but I just didn't want that to be the lead in that, oh, that's Puritan, he's gay, that kind of thing. I was like, okay, if somebody knows that, that's fine. So it has been a defense mechanism for me to just kind of not lead with that. So at any job that I'm at, I don't lead with that. If people know, they know, but I'm not at the parades. I'm not at, a lot of these functions that are specifically gay led or gay charged or whatever. Part of that is just because I try to separate work from personal life, period. But a lot of it is, I just don't want to be on Front Street with that. And again, that's something I'm still working through. And as far as family, it's the same thing with me. Like, my family doesn't talk to me about my sexuality. I'm sure that they know, especially if they're watching, the podcast. We talk about, I'm unapologetic about what I say here. So people know, I'm sure they do. But again, it's just not something that I talk about. I focus on other things. I focus on other aspects of who I am and who they know me to be whenever I'm around those spaces. And I've been dancing in those spaces for so long that they don't feel weird to me. It's just, I automatically know when I go home, okay, I'm going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about that. I'm not getting ready to have a whole bunch of other conversations about anything else. When I'm at work, I'm going to talk about this, and that, and then we're just going to go on with life, So the navigation for me in that is just awareness. It's more awareness, like knowing that this is the audience that I'm going to be around, and in order for me to not cause any other turmoil, whatever, that I just need to kind of stay in that space or not bring up certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So one kind of final question here is, have you ever judged someone else for being too performative?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
I definitely have. We are definitely keeping this real.
Absolutely.
I've
And
judged
vulnerable.
people for being too performative because, and being too performative in queerness.
In queerness.
Because on social media, there are a lot of people rather, who are not black, who are not female, but love
they're
to
black
use
females.
black, female, black, gay lingo and terminology. And I know. The gestures, all of that. Like, yes, I am judging you. I am judging you for performing as a black woman when you're not black.
And you're not a
I'm
woman.
judging you for performing as part of gay blackness when you're not black and you're not gay. Because for me, I feel like you're also doing this for the clicks and views. That's not authentic. You did not grow up like that. Most of them did not grow up like that. Not saying that they didn't have black people that they were around or grew up around, but Brett, Chad, come on now.
Jonathan.
Why are you out here talking like you Keisha? You're not Keisha. You're not Nene. You're not Kenya. You're not Sheree. You're not Giselle.
Right.
So please stop that. You need to be your version of authentic. So yeah. So that's part of what I think was the performative queerness from the first, when we were doing performative masculinity, was that kind of like sparked that, because in the back of my mind, that is where this was all coming from, was because there are these people that are making names for themselves on social media, and they're not being their authentic selves. They found this niche to be, and now they're getting these clicks and views, and they're getting that off of the backs of the black people,
yep,
that they're trying to appear to be or to look cool. So yeah,
culture vultures.
Those are the people. I'm judging you.
Yeah, I agree. I've done the same, and the judgment shows up in like a kind of a turning up of the nose, like you're like what? Okay, for real? Like you gonna do that? I will say that I have actually judged, people who are black and gay for performing, and it's the same thing that I mentioned earlier about how I can have a conversation with you when it's just me and you, and then when you're out among everybody else, you completely change up who you are, and I'm going, ooh, who is that? What's happening here? Years and years and
who is
years
this
ago.
Person?
Yeah, who what? Wait a minute, what? I've not been introduced to you. Who are you? My name is Darius. So I've had somebody say years and years ago, this was probably 2 decades ago, somebody said, yeah, whenever I hang around certain people, I find myself kind of acting like them. And I was like, okay, I don't know why that has stuck in my mind ever since then. But I'm just like, and periodically it'll just pop up like that. I see exactly where I was, and I see that person go, yeah, whenever I'm around somebody for, a summer or, a few weeks, I just start to act like them. And I'm like, okay, why would you do that? Why would you intentionally say that out loud? And then why would you feel like you did? Now it's different if like you pick up some things from somebody. That's different, and you're aware of that. But if you can out of your mouth say, yes, I am single white femaling, somebody else. That's crazy.
Yeah, because you know how when people from the South go up
Mhm.
north and vice versa. And when I say up north, I mean like your New Yorks,
Mhm.
your
I know where you're
Philadelphia's,
going with that.
right. And they come down south and they start at sounding a little bit more proper. Or the people, come down south and they go visit their folks up north and then they start, where you get that from? Because you got this little twang and
Mhm.
drawl that you didn't
Yeah.
have before you
Right.
left here. Because I've heard it also happened when people go to the UK that
Yeah.
they'll go be
God.
American,
Yes.
they'll go to the UK,
Yes. My cousin
they live there for a
lives in
little
the
while,
UK
come
right
back.
now. Yeah. Oh my God. My cousin is completely British right now. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
you grew up in Charlotte with the rest of us. Like, what's going on? So yeah, he has completely like immersed himself in that.
Yeah, I didn't even know that, but I was just bringing
That's
that up because
when you
I've
brought
heard
that
that
up, I was
happen.
like, oh my God, that is exactly the case. Yep. With him.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't gonna say I
But
judged
that's
him for that,
normal.
but it was fun. It was fun to laugh at.
Yeah.
And I remember his older brother and I are like the same age. And so he came home and he was talking and I was just like, where did that accent come from? And he was just like, so it was really hilarious there. But yeah. So a question that I have for our listeners and our viewers here, and this is something you can engage with us in the comments if you'd like. We'd love to hear your commentary on this. Should we or should people unlearn performative queerness? So, should people unlearn performative queerness? So, use that as a question that will kind of spark some discussion in the comments. But here are some things that I want to kind of leave everybody with, some asks that you can use to kind of interrogate your queerness. So the first thing is you want to really check your why. You want to ask yourself questions like, why am I doing this? Why am I performing in this way? Am I trying to be accepted by other queers? Am I performing queerness to prove something to straight people or people outside of the queer circle? And am I doing this to feel seen or to avoid being erased? Okay. So reflection over reaction really is the key there. So you can wear the look, you can speak the slang, you can, hit a pose, strike a pose, whatever, but do it because it's you, do it because it's you, not because it's what's expected. So number
Mm-hmm.
two, unpack the queer template. Who wrote the script on what's queer and what's not? And then ask yourself, okay, does that fit me? And what parts of me have I been hiding because they're not queer enough? Just because you're loud doesn't necessarily equal that you're valid. Just because you're feminine doesn't mean that you're a good time or that you're fun. Just because you're masculine doesn't always mean that you're desirable. So think about that queer template and think about how you can unpack that and figure out how it fits with you. Number three, you want to practice authenticity. We talked about being inauthentic throughout this episode. And sometimes people only allow themselves to be queer and perform queerness in heavy spaces like clubs or like at Pride or on social media. So maybe think about, am I still being queer when I'm doing things like cooking dinner, when I'm running errands, when I'm just kind of talking to my family? Queerness should exist outside of performance. Number four, build community. Build community with real people. People, surround yourself with people who affirm you, affirm all of you, not necessarily just the aesthetic or just because, oh, he's a good time, because when he drinks, we can do this and we can go to the club and we can do that. It shouldn't all just be about, I'm your friend because you're gay or just because you have charisma. Ask yourself, who loves me when I'm not on, when I'm in my vulnerable spaces or when I'm in spaces where I'm just, I'm in my head or I'm not, in this performative state. Those are the people who really are going to help you remember that your queerness isn't a costume. It's something that really is a part of you. And then finally, get comfortable being boring. I've been told that plenty of times. You don't have to be the life of the party. You don't have to be the iconic person that shuts the party down when they get there, or you don't have to be the person that everybody goes to when they're, the quote walking sleigh. Your queerness really is valid even when you're just kind of chilling out in sweats, when you're watching anime, when you don't have on a filter on your pictures, when you're not flexing on pictures. Your freedom really kind of lives in that quiet comfort. So finally, I want to leave with a waistband reminder. So we're going to call this the Draws waistband. And so this waistband is what actually supports you and kind of keeps you together here. So you don't really got to perform for Instagram or any other social media. You don't have to perform for the gays. You don't have to perform for the straights, or you don't have to perform for the omniscient or the omni sort of algorithm thing. You were already queer before the outfit, before the hashtag or the caption, before the culture started cashing checks, off of our swag. So really just lean into the natural parts of who you are and fuck everyone and everything else. Jeff, you have anything else you want to add there?
I have nothing to add here. I think you pretty much said it all.
Excellent. So with that, we will close it out.
So, fam, thank you for watching and listening to this episode of Just Draws. We hope that you felt the love, laughed a little bit, and learned something new about us and about yourself.
That's right. And remember that the conversation does not stop here. We hope that, especially with the questions that I just asked, that you will come into the comments and you'll talk to us and talk to each other and engage with each other so that we can have some community and continue to build the community. So feel free to follow us on our social medias individually, as well as the Just Draws social media accounts. Stop in, tell us your stories, say what's up. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Until then, just be bold, just be beautiful, and most importantly, just be authentic.
And we will catch y'all next time.
All right. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Now be sure to like, share, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, and Spotify at Just Draws. That's JUSTDRAWZ. Until next time.